They were a hive species. They shared one mind across billions of bodies. Every thought moved through them like water through a river. Every decision came from the collective. No single had ever acted alone. No single had ever wanted to. They had conquered 17 star systems using this perfect unity. Their fleets moved as one organism. Their soldiers fought without fear because death meant nothing to a mind that existed in millions of bodies. When they first encountered humanity, they expected easy victory. The humans had arrived in the Outer Rim territories 60 years ago. They came in small ships. They built scattered colonies on harsh worlds that no collective species wanted. They watched them with mild curiosity at first. These creatures seemed so limited. Each human contained only one mind. Each human made decisions alone. Each human could die permanently. The collective council studied human behavior for decades. They found it confusing. Humans argued with each other. They competed for resources even when cooperation would benefit everyone. They formed small groups called families and fought to protect these groups above all else. They wasted energy on individual emotions. They experienced something called loneliness. They found this primitive. High Commander received the order to absorb the human colonies on 442b. The planet held valuable minerals. The humans had built 3 cities there with approximately 200,000 individuals. The collective calculated that the operation would take 6 standard cycles. Human weapons were inferior. Human numbers were small. Human coordination was laughably poor compared to hive unity. Descended with 40,000 soldiers, they landed in perfect formation around the largest human city called New Helsinki. The soldiers moved in synchronized waves. Their plasma rifles charged at the exact same moment. Their feet struck the ground at the exact same time. The humans did something unexpected. Instead of surrendering or fleeing, they scattered, felt confusion ripple through the local collective mind. The humans were not moving together. Each one seemed to choose a different direction. Some ran toward buildings. Some grabbed primitive projectile weapons. Some pushed smaller humans behind them and stood facing the army with nothing but their bodies as shields. Ordered the first attack wave. The soldiers advanced in perfect rows. They expected the humans to break formation and run. That was what logical prey did when faced with superior predators. But the humans did not run. A single human male stood in the path of 200 soldiers. He held a metal tool in his hands. Not even a proper weapon, just a tool for cutting metal. The nearest to him fired. The plasma bolt struck his shoulder. The human screamed in pain. Any would have simply allowed that body to fall while the collective continued fighting through other bodies. But this human did something strange. He stayed standing. He swung his tool at the nearest soldier and crushed its skull. Then he kept fighting. Watched through multiple eyes as this wounded human killed 3 more soldiers before finally collapsing. The collective mind processed this data with growing unease. Why had he continued? His wound was fatal. His death was certain from the moment the first bolt hit him. Fighting on served no logical purpose. Unless purpose was not the point. The battle for New Helsinki lasted 18 cycles instead of 6. They lost 9,000 soldiers. They had expected to lose fewer than 500. Every calculation had been wrong because every calculation assumed humans would behave rationally. They did not behave rationally. A human female barricaded herself inside a food storage building with 27 smaller humans. She was their teacher, the later learned. Not their genetic parent, not their direct relative, just a human who had been assigned to educate them. When soldiers breached the building, she fought them with a heating element torn from the wall. She killed 2 soldiers and wounded 5 more before they overwhelmed her. The collective mind could not process this. She had no biological connection to those children. She would not pass on her genetic material through them. Protecting them gave her no survival advantage. Yet she had fought with a ferocity that matched their most enhanced warriors. Requested reinforcements, and additional analysis. The collective council sent observers to study the remaining human resistance. What they found disturbed the entire hive mind. The humans had retreated to underground tunnels beneath the city. They had limited food, limited water, limited weapons. Logic demanded their surrender. They did not surrender. Instead, small groups of humans emerged at random intervals to attack positions. These attacks followed no pattern the collective could predict. Sometimes a single human would appear, cause damage, and retreat. Sometimes groups would coordinate strikes. Sometimes they would sacrifice themselves to protect others who were escaping. They captured a human soldier named. They connected him to their neural interface, expecting to extract tactical information. What they found instead was a mind unlike anything the collective had ever encountered. Was alone in his head. There was no other presence, no shared consciousness, no backup of his memories in other bodies. Everything he was existed only inside his single brain. When he died, all of it would vanish forever. They found this terrifying. How could any creature function knowing that death meant absolute ending? But there was something else in his mind, something that had no word for. He carried memories of people he loved. His mother who had died when he was young, his wife who waited on another colony, his daughter who had just learned to walk when he left for military service. These memories burned inside him with an intensity the collective could not understand. They were not just data, they were part of his identity. And there was more. Carried anger, not the cold calculation of strategic necessity, not the efficient elimination of obstacles, real anger, hot and personal and directed. He hated them for what they had done to his world. He hated them for the friends he had watched die. He hated them for threatening his family. This hatred made him dangerous. The collective mind realized something disturbing. Soldiers fought because the collective directed them to fight. If the collective decided to retreat, every soldier retreated. If the collective decided to surrender, every soldier surrendered. There was no individual resistance to group decisions. Humans were different. Each human had to be defeated individually. Each human had to decide personally to stop fighting. Even if every other human surrendered, one individual could choose to continue. And that individual fighting alone against impossible odds could still cause damage, could still kill, could still matter. The war for 442 be dragged on for 3 years. They committed 2 million soldiers to the campaign. They killed approximately 180,000 humans, but those remaining 20,000 refused to die. They hid in mountains and caves and ruined buildings. They built weapons from scavenged materials. They taught their children to fight. One incident became legendary among the collective. A battalion discovered a human hideout in the northern mountains. Inside were 43 humans, including elderly individuals and small children. The soldiers expected easy capture. Instead, a human male named Thomas Kemp activated explosive charges that collapsed the entire mountain section. He killed himself and all 43 others rather than allow capture. The collective spent decades trying to understand why. Those humans could have lived as prisoners. They could have been processed and integrated into society. Death served no purpose. But that was the point the collective kept missing. For Thomas Kemp, some things were worse than death. Living under control was one of them. His individual choice to die free rather than live controlled was something the hive mind could not comprehend. In the collective, there was no freedom to choose death over the group's decision. In the collective, individual preference did not exist. They eventually won 442B, but the victory cost them 20 times the expected resources. And worse, word spread to other human colonies. The story of New Helsinki became a symbol. Humans across the Outer Rim began preparing for war. High Commander was recalled to face the collective council. The council demanded explanation. How had a species of individuals resisted a perfect collective? How had creatures who could not share thoughts coordinated effective defense? How had beings who experienced permanent death fought without fear? Had no answers the collective wanted to hear. The truth was simple but terrifying. Humans fought fiercely not despite their individuality but because of it. Each human knew that death was the end. Each human knew that their limited time had meaning. Each human chose what they would die for. A soldier had no choice. The collective chose for them. A human soldier chose their own cause. They chose their own moment. They chose their own sacrifice. This made them unpredictable. This made them dangerous. This made them impossible to calculate. The war expanded across the outer rim. Human colonies fell, but always at tremendous cost. They learned to expect fierce resistance even from small settlements. They learned that killing human leaders did not stop human resistance. They learned that humans would fight for abstract concepts like freedom and honor and legacy. 10 years into the war, the Collective Council made a decision that shocked the entire hive mind. They proposed peace. The humans had never defeated the in major battle. They had never threatened home worlds. By every objective measure, they were losing the war. But the cost of victory had become too high. The collective was damaging itself trying to eliminate these strange individual creatures. Human Ambassador Sarah arrived at the home world to negotiate. She was a single human, one mind, one body, mortal and limited and alone. The Collective Council surrounded her with 10,000 representatives. They expected her to feel fear. Instead, she looked at them with an expression the collective had learned to recognize. Defiance. She knew she could die at any moment. She knew they could crush humanity if they committed everything to the effort. She knew her species was small and scattered and technologically inferior. None of that mattered to her. Sarah negotiated for 3 months. She refused unfavorable terms even when the collective threatened renewed war. She demanded recognition of human territory. She demanded prisoner exchanges. She demanded reparations for destroyed colonies. The collective found her infuriating. Did she not understand her position? Did she not see that humanity had no leverage? Did she not recognize that they were offering mercy? Sarah smiled when they asked these questions. She told them something the collective never forgot. She said that humans did not measure strength by numbers or resources or probability of victory. They measured it by willingness to fight, and humans would always be willing to fight for their freedom. They could win every battle and still lose the war, because winning against humans required killing all of them, and humans bred quickly, and human children grew up hearing stories of parents who died fighting. The cycle would never end. The collective spent 40 years analyzing Sarah's words. They studied human history. They learned about human wars fought between human groups. They discovered that humans had always been like this, fighting against impossible odds, dying for abstract principles, refusing surrender even when surrender made logical sense. They eventually reached a conclusion that changed their civilization. Individual consciousness was not a weakness. It was a different kind of strength. The collective had power through unity. Humans had power through personal choice. Neither was superior. They were simply different. The peace between and humanity lasted 200 years. Trade developed. Cultural exchange began. Some even experimented with temporary individual consciousness. They found it terrifying and exhilarating. For the first time in their history, they understood why humans fought so fiercely. When you had only one life, everything mattered more. Every moment was precious. Every choice was permanent. Every relationship was irreplaceable. Humans did not fight despite knowing they would die. They fought because they knew they would die. Their limited time made their causes worth dying for. The collective species had learned the most important lesson in the galaxy. Never underestimate beings who have everything to lose.